Well, SharePoint Saturday Live, and I know 20 minutes till noon means you are hungry. So let's see the session, but I have to also to look for the TV. Is running France, Denmark, the soccer game, and it's 0-0. But we have to see the second part you have to look for in the evening. There is a nice for you. Okay, you have to look for all the stuff until the last session when Jenkins, my friend from the other side of the world, from let's say India will come. I don't know who's exactly in India, but we will see. So I want to talk about the next 50 minutes about OneDrive, knowing the limits. And as I mentioned during my first session, I made a lot of stuff. My name is Hans Brender. The people around the globe know me as Mr. OneDrive. I'm an MVP, mentor, CEO, influencer, whatever you want, or as a retired people, but I still have to do a lot of things, and therefore it makes sense. So first, I have to say anything about the sponsors. Without the sponsors, you have no chance to do such an event, and that is also, thank you very much, sponsors, that you have to give some money or whatever you do. Now I switch to my green or dark side things about OneDrive, knowing the limits. Again, Mr. OneDrive, I'm a cloud and productivity evangelist. Here are my complete stuff about where you can reach me by email, on the blog, on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Mastodon, Signal. And there's also one mistake. Now I'm MVP since 10 years. Here it's 9 years. But anyway, that means you can reach me, give me some question or feedback, whatever you want, that it will come there. So here is the thing that we want to talk about. And normally you see it from the top to going down, but now I do it different from down to top. So the overview, we have a little bit about restrictions, limitations, troubleshooting, something about group policies where we can handle this stuff a bit of security and summary. That's for the next time. So I also have started at the beginning of the last, not started, but it was also with some slides in about issues and critical numbers. And you see these 300,000, but there are more. We have so many numbers we have to look also for insiders, not only for administrators. And there are some numbers you have to listen for 2,500 or 300,000 or 100,000 or 1 plus 9. And this I will say, will you see all these numbers we will handle to, therefore we have to know when these numbers will there. And we will see some special ones. The special one is 300,000, but also 1 plus 9. But I don't think that so many people has the 9, and therefore we have to see. Starting again. So there are some restrictions and limitations in OneDrive and SharePoint. And during the sync, there are stuff we have to listen for them. That is also for migrations. And so very, very important that you know the admins or the migration people do the right thing. The right thing about restrictions, what we have, what we can do, because in file servers, when you migrate, you don't have these issues. Not all, but some we will have, but we will see. So first we are talking about restrictions, and then we talk about limitations. That also very interesting, because restrictions are very easy to handle. Limitations a little bit more. That is the flow of the data there, and some troubleshooting tips also. And we will talk about before each. We started with restrictions. If you start with restrictions, you have to say, okay, all others are gone. We have to see what is going on. And you see the first one is invalid characters. You know, there are some invalid characters. Normally, you do not able to handle that with some exception. From macOS, you will have them, or you can have that if you are a developer and put some file names. So that's not possible to do that. You can handle that, not in the Windows Explorer. Then he says, no, it's not possible. But as a developer, there are some chances to do it, like a star or backslash, or all the characters here in yellow. That's not allowed. Also, sometimes leading and trailing spaces in file or folder names aren't allowed. Listen, that's very often the case that to see, and you don't see that. Therefore, you have to look for that. There are also some special names about files and folders like console or printer, auxiliary, all this stuff coming from the DOS world, and we have to look for them too. So sometimes if you have underscore VTI underscore in a file name, that's not a good idea. Also forms, and forms could be special, isn't supported when the folder is at the root level for library. It's not forms as an app. It's in time if you have it in the folder at the root level for a library. Okay, we have to listen for that. And you can create a folder name in SharePoint that begins with a tilde. So that's an easy part, I think. You see, that's all the invalid characters. Going to the next, invalid or blocked file types. So sometimes there are invalid, means some temporary temp files, or desktop ini on the Windows or DS Store on Mac OS. If you had that, they will blocked. Outlook PST files are supported, but seeing blocking syncing or specific tile in group policies. So PSTs, you can handle it, but you have to be listen carefully. If you have in your Outlook a PST file attached or inserted, that will handle during Outlook, and this is in OneDrive stored, that's not a good idea, because even if you also say, hey, I do not work with him, it's only for reading, it's handled, it changed during the day when you work with Outlook, and therefore it has to be published and published and published sometimes. So if it's not attached, if you only have a PST file to store it, not involved in in Outlook, you can handle it. That's a different. So OneDrive for work or school users, some file types may be blocked user organizations of SharePoint site. That we have also know. That depends what you have in the work or in the school user. They can say, no, this file type will not be used. Internal, whatever you want. If it's too big, you should not handle that. So for network or map drives, there are not. You can't on network or map drive as your OneDrive sync location. That doesn't work. It's different. OneDrive exists on your machine. You can handle like documents or pictures or desktop the files with moving them. Known file the move, KFM. You can move them inside because they have to be moved. Not on your disk, because disk is easy part if you handle that, because they only say now they are on a different location. But you cannot say, I want to add a new folder inside your OneDrive location. Also, symbolic jinks or junction points are not supported. Keep in mind, people say it's the old world, and therefore you should not do that. And there is also something, OneDrive cannot be run at elevated privilege. That means you cannot do it higher. In the old days, you can handle several stuff with Groove. That was the old sync machine. And you can handle Groove as a service. No way with OneDrive. With OneDrive, it works only if you are logged in. And therefore, it's not a service on a server anyway. However, the per machine sync app installation is very helpful to do that. Thinking about you have 5 persons who are changing all the day and say, okay, I log on with this guy, then the next guy comes in a health care or something else. And each of them has its own sync app installed. Means one time, if you have a new sync engine, it must be updated 5 times. And that makes a little bit thing, if you know 140 megabytes, that's not a good idea. That is half of a gig that we have there for downloading the stuff. Therefore, you should run it on a machine base. And then it's a good thing. It's only one and one times updated, and that's the best way. So therefore, you can handle that, but not with the privilege we are sharing. So talking about sharing, now it's a little bit easier to handle this for the users. You can share this item because too many items have already been shared in this library. What does mean? That's the message that comes up. There is a limit of 50,000 items can be shared within a folder or any subfolder. Not so easy. 50,000. Remember, if you have 50,000 items in one folder. But keep in mind, you have to look and scroll so much. Therefore, you can overcome this registration. You lead that, and then it's okay. And shared with me, you can synchronize the shared with me view grouping of files from a OneDrive for work or school site. Shared with me, you cannot synchronize such stuff that is not working. You have to build it in another restriction. So the question comes, and I have it also in the morning, how many OneDrive accounts you will have. And listen, normally for the blue icon, that's OneDrive for Business, you have up to 9. And for the personal one, you have only 1. 1 plus 9 or 9 plus 1, whatever you want. That means one personal. Why? Because you got 5 gigabytes of free storage. And people would allow to have more than one OneDrive personal and to get it into. You can have that, but you can only sync once in your Windows machine or Mac. Once to synchronize. If you change it, put it in another way, that's okay. But once only to sync directly. And therefore, I talk about 1 plus 9. I have also more than that because there are some possibilities to handle that. All links I have also in for the new OneDrive versions are stored in Windows because I can handle that and share it, and there is no time in decreasing or decreasing that I cannot share it to the people on my Windows or my blog with the different version. Only that the time is good, all people can access it. Therefore, it's different. And therefore, I have a OneDrive, another OneDrive personal, but I do not sync this stuff with my machine. That's a different one. So how many is also clear. And sometimes you have to say, okay, authenticated proxies. And that's live and supported in OneDrive. Even if you have an absolutely new machine, it could be that the authenticated proxy will work. But Microsoft has still saying it's not supported from them. Your proxy settings require authentication. All you see the error code with these 800 numbers when trying to sign in OneDrive. So last one about of this restriction, one notebook. Notebooks have their own sync mechanism outside of OneDrive. Sometimes the people do not know. OneDrive is a sync algorithm. OneNote is your map where you can store all the data like a book on paper. So you have to put it in, but they have their own synchronous mechanism. And you read all the restrictions. You plan to sharing a notebook with yourself or others. It's best to create it from OneDrive right from the start. Then it works. One notebook is saved in OneDrive. If you are using the folder that contains the notebook, you will find a stub or URL file, which will open the notebook on the website. Perfect. Read this language article, move the OneNote notebook to OneDrive. It's a little bit complicated, but it's an easy part for an administrator to find this way. That's all the restrictions. Gone. Now we have to go to the limitations. So you see, the limitation is an easy part also, or a quick part what we have to look. Limitation. The first one is file upload size. And you see that's an easy file up and download files for sync 250 gigabyte per file. Individual files, 250 gigabyte. But if you talk about files where a zip is in there, 20 gigabyte. Files with a zip. You cannot have all zips together. There is maximum of 20 gig. You say that's much? Yes, it's much, but anyway, you have to look. I do not know what the users are putting into a zip file. 20 gigs in one zip file. That's okay. These limits apply to files, not to your total storage. Has nothing to do with that. Yeah? For any larger file than a few gigabytes, we recommend using the OneDrive Sync app rather than the website upload feature. Although there is a floating thing. Therefore, use the Sync app. It's a better way, and not to upload it to the website, to a browser. There are also some limit. Therefore, you have to know that. Talking about file name and path lengths. Oh, that could be a little bit critical. Different apps and Office versions have different limits. And the combination of limitation may be unique to your setup. To entire decode the file path, include the file name, cannot contain more than 400 characters. But we have to look what's in there. About OneDrive and OneDrive for Work for School or SharePoint in Microsoft 365. The limit is a combination of both of that. You see that if you have a file URL and you see this percentage sign, that looks pretty shiny. This is of an XLS, and that is a space. Therefore, we have to look. The URL is the upper limit, the down, and you see that. So that means, okay, the URL in OneDrive is a long file and limits also there. Therefore, you have to count and do it different ones. So we cannot look for that even enough if you have long file names. Means during your migration, also look if you have some file servers, long file names. But if you are going up and do that and you could not change, sometimes it's better to clean up the file servers, files and hierarchy, because it's shorter if you have not documents and only docs or something else. That's our far signs, and so you can keep the URL very small. That's the thing what I have to say. There are a lot of things I later on will show you that is possible with all the data, and I have still 3 or 4 customers. They're fighting against this 400 limit or 260 characters. Therefore, read the stuff in the limitations section. So we come to thumbnails and previews. Thumbnails are not generated for images larger than 100 megabytes. So you think, if you have a syncing with a Windows machine, you can say, okay, I want to have it and it's always in the cloud. That's perfect. Take no space on your machine. But it's not only the file name that is there, it's also a little small picture. And syncing, it could not for an image later than 100 megabyte. An image that is possible. But sometimes you have to know there is also some documents for PowerPoint. There are a little bit more, and means that the picture could not be generated. Thinking about that, yes, Word and Excel also generate a thumbnail. If you are offline, then you see the files, not the file, but you see what's in there with a small image. PDFs previews are not generated for files larger than 100 megabyte. It's the same thing as I described before. So on the other side, I have to say, yes, there are some limits what you can sync or copy. If you use OneDrive Personal, you can only copy up to 2,500 files at one time. If you go to Reddit and see all the stuff, people always talk about, I have to copy data, and never know, yes, they copied more than 2,500 files. And then they stop and blah, 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 and have to work about that. For OneDrive for Business, even if you have to store 30 million documents in each library in SharePoint Online, the optimum performance goes down, and syncing is not possible on more than 300,000 files across all document libraries. And if you are both a combination, you have to say that's the stuff, the syncing of the OneDrive Personal with some data in, and syncing OneDrive for Business with more than 300,000 files or less than that. it makes no sense, because the machine has to build the work in the background and still have to work with them. Thinking about Windows 11, why the people say with Windows 11 you have a new processor type and not the old one. That's one good reason for me, that the new machine can handle more files, but we still have to begin, and not with the old ones, old devices that cannot handle more than these 300,000 files. Therefore, we have performance issue across all libraries that you are syncing, even you are not in this grid hierarchy. Sometimes, if you have so many files, if you have more than 150,000 files, that is the best thing to split off. Yeah, we have a chance with add to OneDrive, we will talk about later. Therefore, you can do, but during migration should be done, although that you not have all these documents in one file. People normally say, I want to sync, and that stuff will come down, and you can say, okay, I do not want to have all these files there. Better you do another part of that. Therefore, it could be also to split off in two different SharePoint document libraries, like an archive for the older ones and the new one. But it depends on the hierarchy. That is about numbers of OneDrive, and you see a lot of stuff where you can read about that. The thinking is, although, what is the speed about all the stuff, and that makes it very complicated to read that. Talking about information rights management, you can split off. Libraries can be synchronized as read-write. If you see a little key in each file, sync up for Windows build 7.1.7 or OneDrive Mac build 1.8. Done. That can be synchronized as read-write. That is possible. Sometimes you have to do that because during a project they want to be in a different way, and therefore this is okay. But now we are in 2.2 and not 1.7. That means 2017. But I have to know about that. Differential sync. Sometimes differential sync is possible for Microsoft Office files in the new file format about docs, PowerPoint, and Excel sheet. But you have to know different sync means you have it and it's all organized in XML files. And that means you have to see if you have a picture, and then that is a long picture, a big picture in your Word or your Excel document. Yes, I have seen that. Then you see it's indite, and then have to synchronize a little bit one if you see that's there. If you have different parts, different paragraphs, and so on, then you see, hey, you can synchronize that because it's a big one, but it only synchronizes if you change some parts of the document. And you see, this is part of Microsoft Office integration, requires to have, by the way, Office 2016 click to run, and also Office 2016 MSI package if you roll that out. You also must have a OneDrive version. Okay, I have said it with 1.7 and the old one. Differential sync. Very, very important for big documents. And you see that although that is part of that, I've spoken it also in the other thing, that means you see this file, Office file, that the sync has a problem. If a sync has a problem, it could be merged automatically, or if you are in the second one, that is although a copy only with an additional file name, and you have to build or migrate both together personally. That will kick off in the new version that's now in preview, but not only in a preview, it's although in the old one. It will come them in the future, and it's deprecated. So have to look for that. One protocol is out. Differential sync. Others file tapes in different sync is available also globally, but you have to look about what is the best way to think about. It's more done in automatically during the process. Libraries with specific columns. If you have libraries with check in and check out, you know, that's the old versions. You can still have that in SharePoint libraries. From the old days, I have to say, there was a check-in, check-out. SourceSafe was a product for developers that can handle that. In the morning, I go into the office and split off from a SharePoint. That was not SharePoint. This was a file instrument. But anyway, it comes from SourceSafe, and I pick out what I want to do and work on this process. It's mine. Nobody can work with them. And in the evening, I have to look If there are no errors, I put it in and check it out. No, first out and then check it in. Then it could be a completely rollout or compilation about other parts of the program other people has done. So that should not be done. And you should not work with check-in, shut-out. It's not a good idea. It's better here. Now you always have our transatlantic flights in the airplane. You have the possibility. You do not need check-out anymore. That will handle during your search, during your machine, and if you come and have a stable internet again. For OneDrive libraries, we show the icon is this icon say OK is check out, and you see the status number, and otherwise it has to be removed. We are going on some Windows-specific limitation. That's not. A file explorer displays the first character of a site library's name. Blah, blah, blah. Name. Yeah. Only the first 35. And then no main. We have no chance to handle this. To make a short, the different one. They cut it after that. This doesn't affect the ability to sync these items within these limits. And roaming and mandatory and temporary files are not supported. Also have to say that's not a good idea to have that. On Mac, we also have the same, but additional the VDI components we have with then, you have to look for FS Logic apps 2.8 or later if you have a Citrix or something. Them that's okay now. They can work also. They mount their file during the process, and it's a good idea to do that if you have such environment working with, let's say, iPad on Windows. Yes, that's possible in these days. Thinking about there's also Microsoft 365 stuff that will come there. Okay, going forward, make OS specification case sensitive formatted disk volume is not supported. That's an easy part. We see that, and you have to listen for them. That was troubleshooting. No, that was limitations. Now we came to troubleshooting. It's right. Therefore, I have to look at 2 parts. We have restrictions, we have limitations, and now we are on troubleshooting tips going away. So that's only 5. OneDrive system requirement. You have to look what OneDrive system requirement if you build a new machine. Active Microsoft account, a work or a school account. The PC also must have criteria for operating system file system requirements. So therefore, read more about this link, OneDrive system requirements, and then look if it's possible. If you want to have a build machine or something else, that must be the first step. The second one, my friend, Sarah. No, it's not a wife. It's not a girl. It's Sarah is support and recovery assistant. And that may help if we have several issues with OneDrive. And it's not a program, it will stop. You have to look for support and recovery assistant. It will come down the first time you are using it. Yes, it implements some stuff and you see it's going for Teams. It's going, oh, come on, that's not, it's going, what is the hell? It's going for Teams, it's going for Office, OneDrive for Business and other stuff, also for Outlook, Windows and several other things. Therefore, it's big. The engineers at Microsoft built this version if they found the possibility that they correct several stuff on your machine. They have implement SARA, Support and Recovery Assistant. Even if you don't use it anymore, or later on, let's say after 2 months, you will have an update about 20 to 40 or 60 megabytes because so many things come in each day in the Support and Recovery Assistant. An absolutely good choice to use that. If your account environment is not supported by the support and recovery, read how to fix OneDrive for business sync problems. Although a link for you, but most of them, they will use it. They can check and request OneDrive to work for school account, they update to latest version of OneDrive, unlink and so on and so on. You see a lot of stuff that is in there if you do not have the support and recovery assistant. That will done automatically during SARA. Therefore, I like SARA. Sometimes it's an easy part. If you see reset OneDrive, it's an easy part. You don't know that? If you have a little bit trouble that your files on your machine, if you say 100,000 files, We will know the limit, 300,000. It must work, but it's not so good. If you see some telenovela, I see that people always say clapping up their notebooks and stop the sync. No, I don't know if they're working with OneDrive. Then it's not a good idea to stop the sync. Sometimes the cache also works there, and that means it outside. This means the cloud is your latest thing or the first thing. All others, one of the machine are out of sync. That doesn't mean it install a different thing, but you have to reset your OneDrive. You don't have to deinstall or install. You say, okay, leave it, quit OneDrive, and then go inside the command line and say OneDrive exe and this directory where the OneDrive exe is there, and then the /reset. No, not the slash, only reset command. You find that on the blog, on the several things inside. And that makes a reset. It takes the time to bring these 100,000 files, we have spoken about that, in pair, and then all the things are there. Don't deinstall, don't install again, and so you don't need that. Reset is the best way. So the next one is also very important. Only think what you need. With OneDrive files on demand, there is a possibility that we have to look for them. That makes that you can hold this stuff, and minimum, you don't need the complete files on your machine. Even if you have no internet, it works. Click me. But you can do it, and you won't lose files if you're disabling or uninstalling OneDrive on your computer. They're still there. Only if you have it in a different way. But if you prepare that and want to deinstall, you can do it, but you don't need that mostly. So syncing too many files. Sometimes if you are working with a browser, you find the processing 0 kilobyte of 0 MB. It caught because a lot of files in your OneDrive or a lot of new files to be uploaded. Keep it smooth. Don't take 100,000 files at once. Make it directory by directory or something like you can handle this stuff. That's a better way, and see that. Then transferring for large files, we recommend adding the files to the OneDrive desktop and not upload them during the website. Very important. Not doing the website. Sometimes it's also duplicate file names. If you have sync conflicts, if you're uploading multiple files on the OneDrive website at the same time, or there are changes to another folder, another PC that is syncing at the same time. And sync issues can also occur if you edit files offline. Another person has done it, and then you have to conflict and have to look for that you don't duplicate file names. It will never run. So that's that's restrictions. And you see here the restrictions, and I will jump into it to show you what's going on. So you see the symbols is here. The symbols are here with the OneDrive Personal and also the blue one. Yeah? And you find all the information we have spoken about that in this simple site. It's not only I have to display it and you have to look it. They will do it anyway, always and always, and put it together. The last thing was, I think, 12 May 2021, but they will check it. That is the only site you will have to use. So we have to look for that. Group policies. The troubleshooting part and the limitations and restrictions. Sometimes you have to say we can work with group policies. That's all group policies. No group policy have a symbol. But I make some symbols for the computer and also for the user configuration of the group policies. That has been done during 2019, speaking of the Ignite during Microsoft. And Microsoft found it so good. And if you see something, and you see, okay, what is the symbol? That means B2B. So B2B sites the users cannot approach to go to PTP sites. That's the thing. Not is an X, and B2B, you handle that. Or also warning during several stuff. Or also some other stuff. If you see a group policy and if there's a symbol, that's very easy to handle that. but you never see it. You see it only if you have a workshop or see it what I have to do. So talking about that, there are some group policies that do with several things what we should handle that we cannot, the other stuff we talked before. So, okay, for several things, OneDrive dehydrate. And that's a group policy that's not in OneDrive, but it's very, very interesting. First, we have to talk about a little bit. The thing is, with these OneDrive files on demand, we got 3 different symbols. This one is locally available, and there is also always available. And the third one is group. The files is only in the cloud only. Yeah, you know the difference? Okay. And looking into NTFS, you find the information you still have on your machine in the fed allocation table. And therefore, there are stuff that is completely in. That's a file name, that's a type, that's a number. And even if you don't have installed one Office and you have another package from another manufacturer, it will change if it's a DOC then or DCX, then it will also start the other program. Therefore, we have to use the type. But then I also have a picture of it. We talked about that. Also, Faro Office file, you see that. But normally you have a picture if it's offline. Now we have all the stuff. There are some attributes. The attributes depends which symbol you have. Local available, always available. There's a green screen dotted, and cloud only. But listen, there are some more data. I don't have time or have it installed here. That means file created date or modified date. And then you had to get one pointer to the beginning of the content. Taking a picture, that's a bitstream. But it's not only here, because on your file structure, it's only a different part, and one pointer goes to the next pointer, to the next pointer, to the next pointer, and then it's all. But the first pointer is very important. If you have it, it's locally available, because all data on your machine, you click on it, it opens. Perfect. But sometimes if you have to say, okay, if it's cloud only, you see, I want it back. That means I free up some space. The space is a document content, whatever file type you have. And you click on it, space makes free, and it's only in the cloud. These information are still there. So therefore, you have to know about that. And one thing is that you have different. You can change several things. You have to be the configure storage sense cloud content dehydration threshold, complicated name, will do that automatically, will change all local available to cloud after a different time. There will never touch symbols like always available, only this part. So you have to install the thing. Yes, I want to do it right now. Each time you can say, okay, automatically after 1 week, each 3 days to check that. Then you have to say, what should they do? And the last thing of the modification date, if that is going, let's say 7 days, then will the change from local available to cloud available. So that's a thinking. Most people do not know the difference because local available and global available, or always available, sorry. Because this configuration never touched my system. The good thing is I can run it automatically. I have it installed with 3 days. Means after 3 days changing, it will automatically change it. If I know I go into the land where I never have internet, or in the German railway, the trains, they have not a good internet, therefore you have to look. Going to a customer, want to present my PowerPoint, and it's gone, because this has translated to cloud only, and if this guy has or this company has no internet for me, I have no data with me. Therefore, you should do and say always available for your files. Do you need always? Always mean one times a week, one times in 14 days, one times in 4 weeks for different approaches. I have a file. I have to meet my doctor has to say you have to take your blood pressure and put it on a script on a piece of paper. And I say, a piece of paper. Now I have 5,000 measurements into an Excel sheet. I do it every day. So I do this into always available because I need it always again if I have a journey or whatever. So therefore you have to look what these files are in there, and then you can configure storage sense. That means it's an easy part if you deliver this part. And that's the most thing. Automatically your cleanup. You can do a little bit more, but that's the thing you have to look in the group policies. For example, you can automatically clean your recycle bin, your local recycle bin after a amount of time, or you clean all the files temporarily are there in or the download area, whatever. But keep in mind talking to the people. Without talking to the people and display them what they have to do. Clean up your local policies. It's not so easy. People has to say if it's automatically that they should not have the download area as a several storage. I do it too. I know that the people will do that. Therefore, to keep in mind to talk before to run these things. And therefore, you have to display and talk to the people. When we do that, we clean your things, make it available that your machine do not hold so many people, so many files, and your disk is always full. That should not be, make it here. Yeah. Okay, looking for that. Sometimes it's although we have to look, ask your admin. Ask your admin about sharing, about information rights management, or call it IRM. Or über Azure Rights Management, calling about remote management, Azure Rights Management. Yeah, that is a style. The first one is about information rights management. We have it in the old days about NT4. Okay, there may be some people that do not know what NT4 is, okay, but there you could do without an Azure, without all the stuff that I can handle a PowerPoint presentation to 10 people, 5 that can only use it, cannot change it, but I have also the possibility that the secretary of mine can print it. Only this person with all the stuff. But you see, different information and protection about the file is very important. And now, these days, it's more important that you have sensitive labels. In the old days, it was easy. More from IRM going to RMS and now to sensitive label, it could be complicated. Even you have more sensitive labels in different areas. Thinking about teams and whatever we have, sensitive labels is not so easy to handle this if you have guests in there. Talk to the admins that they could also check about that. And now we come to the summary that you can have and say, okay, I have to eat something. Or no, we have another one. Jenkins is waiting for us and we have to see that. Therefore, I'm a little bit here for the summary. So I also have to say, looking, if you want to check all these stuff with new ones, and the new ones means although where I do found the newest version. It could automatically, that's the newest version, but not the newest version because I have it on this machine. Even if I had the Insider Preview installed, yes, but the newest one is 232. And you see, that's 227, that's a production version. That was an insider version before this version come out, but we have a day, Thanksgiving Day in US, and during a bank holiday, we say, there will no roll out of any versions because if there's a problem, they cannot react. All offices in the United States are closed, all offices from Microsoft. So there are no people, they have a long weekend about Thursday, Friday, Saturday, today, and Sunday. A long day to make something else. The versions you find behind this plug, and you see, although there's a 32-bit, a 64-bit, or an ARM, I'm showing also you that we handle it. That's a site, and you saw this version, and you see, although that you see the versions are 32-bit, 64-bit ARM, but there is a little bit more. There is a complete list, looking for that. That's a complete list of all versions. And you see, I have although some versions, not only the Windows, that's the same we have seen, but also for Mac, iOS and Android, and some remarks about that. And that's a long, long list what you have, all the information. Each version will come up, and you see although that I have all these versions installed, but it's, you don't have to scroll it here. You also can say, I want to show it and see it here. Oops, to the Mac. Going to the Mac, and you have the Mac always here, and you see the difference. What is the Apple device? What is Silicon? What is the other way? You have all these versions with the same versions number. Now Microsoft is doing that. Going to the top, you find a lot of information. Although for the Mac, that's a long, long list. But going to the top and showing you what Microsoft is doing with this stuff, we have a list although at Microsoft. That's here. And you find a small list. That's all. No insider version, only the production ring with 2. They are rolling out 227. That's old. They have a newer one. So you have to look for the date when it's installed. And the same if you're going to Mac OS, you have the same versions, no insider version, but the rest is sort of the same. And sometimes I do not know what they have. But anyway, we have the information, therefore you can also download it here when you want to do that. You also have to look, if you go to recommendations, when they install new technology in Microsoft, that means in the Microsoft plug, they make it a little bit different, only one, and there's a little bit longer the each block times, but you have to see that's in June, and you have to look that although there are some news, and you see that. And here, although I speak a lot about, or not only the speaking, I have a blog with German and English versions of the most parts of the article that are relevant, over 850. And that is also interesting for a roadmap. If you see what's in there, I put it out for OneDrive, and you see all these different known folder move for Mac OS, or you have to look for that, but don't listen to the dates. Sometimes it's a little bit complicated. 2 more things. One, I have built a community board for OneDrive. So some people, some other MVPs from Austria, here in Europe, one is an Office 365 developer, one is an artificial intelligence guy, an MVP. We built, they want to digitize me. That's not possible. Only the knowledge, it's also not possible, but we do our best. So you can ask him anything about OneDrive. If it's in there, you got an answer. It's a chatbot. You can install it directly from the team app source. That means there are 1140, I think, or 80 applications in. And if you found for community bot for OneDrive, then you found it. It doesn't need anything. We only need Teams to run it, that you can also show your administrators if you're a user. Hey, here I says there is. It comes only to my knowledge and the knowledge of, yes, the links to the blog post that Microsoft has. Not the links in docs, Microsoft.com. They are shared now to learn.microsoft.com. And now it's inside SharePoint. But anyway, that's the same if you have a link to docs. Therefore, I had not changed that, but you can find all the information that is installed, and you got the right answers. And we use artificial intelligence to pull it all together. Therefore, you don't need me. I need some sleep. Not today. It's now 6 o'clock, and I have to have a second football match and see what's happened there. But you also have to look for, maybe on the video from Microsoft build, there is directly connected and you see the information. What does it do? So look for that. Last one, here you see the pages in German and in English. You can change between 2 translations. Now we do not have Spanish or Portuguese or something else, because that's an issue from Microsoft. We hope that will become better in the future, that we can in your language, whatever you speak. So, and if you do not can install it, if your administrators do not install it in Teams, maybe, then you can use this link and it goes directly to the bot and say, hey, what's happened there? Let me look. Looking for that, and we have to go a little bit down, and you see that's a thing, and I can say, okay, that's blood, looking for this. hi, talking to him, and he will answer about that, hopefully. Yeah, he gives a long answer. You see, hello, that's the thing. Here was my hi, and that's an answer about this hello, and we have to look for that. That's the thing. Okay, and if you say okay, you know about Fornox, for example. No, you think about the gold. No, 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 has nothing to do. Fornox. Listen to Fornox. You also see that's is advanced encryption store, and you find it here, although with a video that describe what Fornox is. That your data in transport and on SharePoint Online secure. If you look that, then you are a little bit better than most of the world. It's inside the knowledge inside the OneDrive bot, only a browser you need for that. So there are also a couple of little videos, 10 minutes about Move, about the flyout menu in Windows 11, about files on demand. I also have to told you what's in there. And if you need this slide deck, you can handle it. Make now a photo with your phone. I'm waiting some seconds. But anyway, you also see this slide with the bit.ly command, OneDrive, and the year is 2020, and the month is 11, means November, and the day is 26, means today. And I have the first one is -1. The second one is now this one, and you have all the slide deck on your machine immediately. So I have to say thank you for the show. We still have some time and wait for the last one. That's Jenkins coming from uh, India with the last session, and then we see us hopefully next year. And if you have any question, any commands, give me a choice to blog, to the Twitter, to Signal, Instagram, or whatever you want. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, my friend. It is always a pleasure to be in your session. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And just another day, French one, Denmark
The French,
one.
but then yeah, I see it if I take my hands on the left side. But I have stopped the sound. Yes, that's a good. And you know it also. That is okay. Okay, that's what I have to say. Hopefully next year, next time we see that. Okay.